So for the few moments that are mine, I want to talk from the thought, leadership that impacts and influences. Leadership that impacts and influences. I know we've come here to commemorate the life and the legacy and the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but I have come on assignment to talk about you. Yeah, let that go over the room. One of the things that's critically important for change is, and I have to start out with a coaching question, so when you get me, you get all these various parts of me. Executive coach, attorney, preacher, you get all of those parts of me. So I have to start our conversation by asking you the question, what have you done from last year, this time, to this year? I grew up an only child, so I'm okay with silence. I always tell people silence is my best friend. Because we come to these events, and I think they're great, but the reality is we have to do something. This wonderful book that I love, it says faith without works is dead. And so I want to start off our discussion this morning with the platform that we're all going to launch from, and that is we are all leaders. You are a leader, I am a leader, and at a bare minimum, you ought to be able to lead yourself. Right? You ought to be able to lead yourself and as it relates to the decisions and the choices that you make for your life. You have to be able to lead yourself. And then we all have a sphere of influence, whether it's in our homes, whether it's in our communities, on our jobs. We all have a sphere of influence, and the reality is we can choose in that sphere of influence whether it's a good impact or it's a bad impact. We have a choice in the matter. And I would submit to you today that we are all on this course together. Whether you want to be on the course or not, you are on the course. We are on it together. And so we don't have to spend a lot of time talking about the negative energies and the negative things that have happened and the negative things that are going forward. A reporter reached out to me on last week asking me about what I was going to say today, if I was going to be talking about the elections and where we go from here. Absolutely not. Not. Do you think I would get on a plane, leave my family, and fly all the way here to talk about that? No. I know why I have been sent to the earth. And it is to encourage, it is to empower, it is to allow us to tap into our best selves. Why would I spend my time focusing on something that has happened in the past? No. And so for me, when we start to think about leadership, John Maxwell says it best, that everything rises and falls on leadership. I love that. He also says that leadership is about influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so I would ask you, who are you influencing? There comes a time for every person that you must make a decision on what you are leaving in the earth. What kind of energy are you putting out into the atmosphere? We all know that there is something called karma. One of my friends, she's also a preacher and an attorney, and she says karma has GPS. I wholeheartedly agree. But you have those people that circumstances and situations cause them to become leaders. And this is where we meet the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He did not set out to be a leader. I know we want to think that. He did not set out to be a leader. No. You have those people who willingly raise their hands to become a leader. Right? We just came through that. They willingly raise their hands and say, this is something I want to do. Right. But then you have those people that circumstances and situations and life and all of the convergence of what's going on around them presents itself with an opportunity to either say yes or no. And that is exactly what happened to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. The situation presented itself in such a manner, and it was in line with where he was going on his course. And what I mean by that is he came from a generation of preachers. His grandfather was a Baptist preacher. His father was a Baptist preacher. He graduated from high school at the age of 15, going off to college, going off to seminary. So the environment was already conducive for this kind of positive social combustion, if you will. And so when the situation presented itself in Montgomery with the bus boycott, they chose him. He didn't willingly raise his hand. They chose him to be their leader because they saw something, they felt something about him that could propel them forward, that could move them forward. And so I ask you, what do people see in you? What do they feel when they engage you, when they encounter your energy? You do know we're energy wrapped up in this flesh. You do know that. This is why some people, when you see them, you are so excited, you want to be in their space. And then others, you run when they show up. That's all of us. Don't y'all sit there and try to act pious and pompous. But we're all wrapped up in this flesh. And Martin Luther King was not alone in this circumstance that he found himself being pushed, if you will, into leadership. Nelson Mandela was another one. Rosa Parks was another one, but I love Miss Rosa when they interviewed her. She certainly was not trying to be anybody's leader. She said, I was tired. So she de facto became a civil rights leader, but she certainly didn't set out to do that. It was the matter of time. There is something called kairos, where time and opportunity collide. We call it having a kairotic moment. And that is exactly what Rosa Parks experienced. It was a kairotic moment where the opportunity presented itself. She said, I'm not moving, I'm tired. No, I'm not moving, I'm not going to stand up. And that ignited something that was already brewing in the energy, in the atmosphere, in the spirit realm, if you will. We find ourselves on such a cusp in this time we're living in. And so I want to submit to you, will the real leaders stand up? Right? I want to submit to you that this is an opportunity that we find ourselves, that there is an opportunity for you to either say yes or no. And all of us are in leadership positions wherever we find ourselves. And so I want to share with you just a few characteristics that I see as we view this man's awesome life. And it's number one, belief. You have to believe that what you are leading and what you are leading about, that there is something positive that will come out of it. Why in the world would you spend your time if you don't believe in what you're talking about? Why? Why would you expend your energy? You do know you are only allotted so much energy before your number is called. You do understand that. Dr. Oz says it like this, that we are only allotted so many heartbeats. Why are you expending your heartbeats on things that don't really matter? Why are you expending your energy and your heartbeat on situations where you understand at the end of the day that nothing positive or productive will come out of it? I would submit to you today that this is the very reason that we keep coming here year after year, because there are some characteristics in this man's life that we align with, that we experience and we feel it. But I would say to you that you have the same thing in you. I would say to you that there isn't anything that separates you from him other than saying a resounding yes. Yes to what you know is the right thing. Yes to you to know what you need to be fighting for. And guess what? We're all in this together. Dr. Martin Luther King said it, and I paraphrase, that we may have come over on different boats, but we're all in the same boat now. And that is something that it's very important for us to understand. So my first point is belief. And the thing that I loved about him is he believed in himself enough to say, yes, I'm going to take this system on. And understand that we are all in some systems that we need to take on. Now, I'm an EEO director, and that means equal employment opportunity, for those who may not know. But aside from that, I find myself representing women, and I'm an advocate for women, speaking up for women, and there are many and various industries and vocations that still do not believe that women should lead. I know. Some of those things we don't really want to talk about. But the reality is we can't ignore them because they exist. I can't tell you how many places that I've gone to preach, and they still don't believe that women should preach. But yet I have more credentials than the men that are on the podium with me. Really? Right? There are places that we have to go where when you walk in, because I can't change the color of my skin. I can't change my gender when I walk into a senior management meeting and I am the only African American in the whole room, much less the only African American woman. So when I walk in, I must believe that I deserve a seat at the table. Not only must I believe that I deserve a seat at the table, but I must believe that when I open my mouth that I am saying something of substance. Yes. Now, the onus then falls on me to make sure that I am competent to sit at the table. Yes. I've never asked anybody to open the door for me, and I walk in and I don't know what I'm doing. And that is the thing. We're not asking for any handouts as women. I'm speaking for the women now. We just want the opportunity. And scientists have done studies, and studies have shown that when women sit at the table and we diversify boards and corporate boards, that the companies make more money. It's been proven. It's been proven. Thank you to the few women that are clapping. So we have to believe in ourselves. And this is what Dr. King represented. Belief in himself. Belief in what he was fighting for and fighting about. Believing that we all have something to contribute because we are all valuable and we are all worthy. No one is above the other. We all have the same blood running in our veins. It's red. Don't matter if it's B positive, A positive, O negative, whatever. It's red, right? So you have to believe in it. And then I love this. He believed in his God. Now, it doesn't matter what you believe in terms of the name that you call your God. And perhaps you don't have a belief system, and that's okay too. But the reality is we all have to believe in something that's much bigger than us. If you really want to be successful in what we're calling life, and life as we know it, life as we see it, with all of these things going on around us that we don't have any control over, or we feel like we don't have any control over, you must believe in something in order to get you through your day. So that's the first thing. the characteristic of leading and leadership that impacts and influences, you have to have belief. And then the second thing is you have to be bold about what you believe. And Dr. King was bold about what he believed. He believed in equal opportunity for all. He believed in equality because he understood that we all have something to contribute and we all have something to bring to the table. And you have to be bold about what it is that you believe. And this is critically important, particularly as we take personal responsibility for our own lives and the lives of our family members. This is why you have to be able to go down to your children's school and tell them, you gonna teach my kid. No. When the people have been elected and they have been selected, paid to do what they are in the position to do, I am requiring you to do exactly what you're in that position to do. Now, I have to digress, y'all. Now, the people that know me know I digress. I digress. You see, and I'm the mother of 3 sons. Yes, point your hands towards me. I'm the mother of 3 sons, and my oldest son, when he was going to school, he was having some challenges in school, and I went to meet with one of the teachers, and she decided that the way that we were going to handle this was that I was going to put him on medication. Let that go over the room. And I just remember having this sense of, I wanted to just smack her down. Y'all thought I was getting ready to say something deep. Listen, laughter is medicine to the soul. So some of y'all still wound up. Loosen up. We're just having a conversation. And so I just remember in that moment, I told her, no, perhaps we need to put you on some medication. Because, see, I understood and I understand now that we all have different learning styles. We all have different learning abilities. It is the teacher's responsibility to figure that out. That's what you're paid for. Now, that does not mean that you bear the total responsibility for teaching my kid. Absolutely not. That was the reason I was up there, because I was an engaged parent. But I share that to say that if you are not so equipped to lead yourself, first of all, it is no way that you can advocate and lead your family, because there are too many systems. I'm getting too excited. Let me calm myself down. And so for me, it's understanding that being able to lead means that leadership starts at home. And so I had to be bold enough to advocate for my son, but I thought about all of the kids that don't have an advocate. This is where you and I come in. This is where you and I come in, because we have to be astute enough and keen enough in our intellect to understand that we have a role to play. We have to impact somebody else's life other than our own and our children. Do you understand? You can isolate your kids as much as you want to, but at some point their paths will cross with the folk you're trying to keep them away from. Let that go over the room. Because you don't know where your children are going to end up. There's a huge world out there. So there are some of us who sit in our spheres of influence and these bubbles that we have created. And guess what? The bubble, you cannot keep your kids in it no matter how hard you try. They're going to have to go down to the south side of some place at some point. And the question is, will they be equipped to handle the south side? And what I mean by that, will they put value and worth on the people that live there that don't look like them, that have not had access to what they have had access to? Because they understand, because we've taught them that everybody has value. I told y'all I was an only child. My last point. Not only do you have to believe in yourself as a leader, not only must you be bold, but you must be brave. And brave does not mean that you are not afraid. It just means that the courage has taken control. And I told them yesterday at church, do you think for one moment Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have willingly raised his hand if he knew people were going to be bombing his home, threatening his life, and then ultimately take his life? I don't think so. I don't think so. But the reality is the world and its circumstances pushed him to such. And that is exactly what happens. Over history, you have seen pivotal points in history where people have had to stand up, not because they wanted to, but because something inside of them began to churn that this is not right. And this is why you have a Harriet Tubman that could go back and rescue so many slaves and made it very clear, if you try to go back, you won't be coming out of this alive. I like that kind of energy. I love it. And that all of us have access to that kind of energy on the inside of us, where we know when things are not right. You know it. You know it. Because we all are spirits wrapped up in flesh. And our spirits is what detects injustice. I told somebody I was doing a Facebook Live last week, and my title of it was Kill 'Em with Success. And I began to recount this story that, at the age of 9, I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know anything about really what injustice was, but I knew I felt something when it wasn't right. For people who either wouldn't or couldn't speak up for themselves now, and it surely didn't help that my favorite show was Perry Mason. Let me tell you something. I digress. I loved Perry Mason. And particularly, I can tell you, my favorite part was at the end, when he had that witness on the stand, and he was asking those questions in rapid succession, and all of a sudden the person would say, I did it, I did it. So that surely, that helped me. I love Perry Mason. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. But there was something that was brewing on the inside of me. I knew when things weren't right. And not just external, but internal too. Now, we don't want to talk about our family stuff, so we won't talk about it today. Next time Reverend Lloyd invites me back to GFCC, we talk about our families and all the stuff that goes along with it. But I knew, based on what I felt on the inside, and I believe that when we listen to Dr. King and we listen to those messages, that we can feel it. We feel his sincerity. We feel the power of God's Spirit brewing on the inside of him. And you know why you feel it? Because it's brewing on the inside of you too. It's all over us and inside of us, whether we acknowledge it or not. That's our choice. But the fact of the matter is, we have to be brave. I was talking about on this Facebook Live about when it came time for me to go to law school, that I was rejected 9 times. Let that go over the room. Take a good look. I was rejected 9 times, and I was speaking at a women's conference, and I was sharing my testimony. This is one of many. We all have a lot of them, right? And somebody said, did you ever get tired of applying? And I said, no. Because something inside of me would not let no be the answer. Thank you for this half of the room. Something inside of me would not let no be the answer. And so on the 10th time when I applied, now I do have to tell you, I started to think, well, maybe this is not the profession for me. On the 10th time, well, lo and behold, the director of admissions called me personally, said, you've been accepted. You can come to the orientation, come pick up your admissions materials. I said, okay, I am on the way. I'm on the way. Yes. On my way. So I get there and I walk into the galley. You know, that's the classroom with all the risers and the professor is down at the bottom. You know how they show it on TV. So I walk in and the people are sitting there. I could hear a gasp for air, like, oh. And they were gasping for air because I was big, round, and pregnant. And the gasp for air was, is she really going to try this at this time? Absolutely. Because I knew that if God opened that door, he knew I was pregnant. He knew it. So if he allowed this door to open, I was surely going to walk through it. I went up in there with my bold self, talking about characteristics of leadership that impacts and influences. I walked up in there with my bold, brave self, believing that I can handle this. I got this. And wouldn't you know it, just as God would have it, talking about kairotic moments, talking about the times when you step out, when you are pushed to the edge and knowing that God will meet you. And this is what we see with Dr. King. Listen, he wasn't relying on those people he was walking with, and although they were nice and they were good and they were supportive, but he had to have a higher calling. He had to have something stronger and something outside of himself to get through those times. So a girl walked up to me from my home church whom I had never laid eyes on, but she knew who I was from my preaching and praying and all that, because my home church is a huge congregation. She says, oh, Reverend Nicole, when is the baby due? I said, oh, he's due in November. She said, well, I'm going to tape all of the classes for you and bring them by your house so you won't miss a class, so that when we study for exams, you'll have all the material. Now, some of y'all, that just went right over your head. Please let me tell you how rigorous law school is. Perhaps you don't know. And please let me tell you that you only have one exam for the whole entire semester. And if you fail that one exam, you have failed the whole class for the whole semester. So that was huge. But I want to just end with this. When we start talking about doing something that goes against the grain, because folk were looking at me like, now, this is just not good. This is not good. But I understood that nothing or no one can stop me, could stop me, can stop me today, but me. And when you understand that you have to have a belief in yourself, and this is why when we listen to those messages from Dr. King, you feel it because there is a force that's pushing him. There's a force that's pushing him forward, and the same force is inside of you. And today, the question is, when you go out of here, what will you do with your own leadership influence? How will you impact those people around you? What kind of difference will you make in your sphere of influence to honor the life, the legacy, and the leadership of Dr. King, that we also willingly come together every year to commemorate his birth? But what will you do with his life's work? Thank you.